Shalom again, this is Rabbi Jacob Feuerwerker, Jacob Feuerwerker in Hebrew. Previously I've done a tape on the get issue, Jewish divorce, and I had it taken off the air for various factors, some of which it wasn't that professionally shot. Now we have a small office, we could do slightly better work. And B, that there were certain aspects I missed out. And after I had the tape taken out, the previous tape taken out, I've learned several things and I've researched on the internet several issues. The first one I want to address is what the American Beit Din, or the Beit Din of America from Manhattan, recently proposed. Actually, they proposed it about 3-4 years ago, initial proposal. And I believe their proposal is in itself a crime. It should be declared a federal crime. It is absolute blackmail of men. And if widely adopted, it would lead to an extreme increase in domestic violence in Jewish households, and possibly the murder of many women, many of whom are totally innocent women. I am totally against their proposal. What does their proposal actually say? That if a man and woman who are married by a ketubah are no longer living together as man and wife, but still under halacha married, that irrespective if the man left the woman, or the woman left the man, or the man kicked the woman out, or the woman kicked the man out of the household, or even if the woman initiated civil divorce, or if the woman stole from her husband, as long as they're still halachically married, the man has to pay the woman a living expense of $150 a day. Until 3 years ago, I was fully employed. Actually, even less than 2 years ago. The highest I ever made working for somebody else was $125 a day. Who in heaven's name thinks a woman deserves between $4,500 and $4,650 a day, depending if it's a 30-day week or a 31-day week, or $4,200 if it's a 28-day week, a month to live on, especially if she did, like many cases I know of, stole from her husband, abused her husband, cheated on her husband, yet she deserves $150 a day? Wow. Talmud Gittin was completed approximately 1900 years ago. It was started much earlier, but it was completed at about that time. The reality of today is much different than then. Women are demanding equal rights. And I believe as long as equal rights for women are granted to women, women should also accept equal responsibility. Now, granted, under Jewish law, only the man could grant a get, although there are certain conditions where legally, under halacha, a woman could demand that a Beit Din force a husband to give her a get, even up to and including the point of physical force. I believe as long as no blood is drawn, to force him to give her her get. On the other hand, under most circumstances, a Beit Din is not allowed to force or even shame a reluctant husband to give his wife a get. The condition that a Beit Din is allowed to force a husband to give a get is A, he refuses cohabitation, meaning he refuses to have sex with his wife when he is capable of doing so. B, he is impotent, or I should say sterile, without first disclosing that condition to his prospective wife, and then she became his wife and found out he's sterile. I know of several such incidences, although today most parties to those instances are deceased because it happened a lot after World War II in this country, and also, unfortunately, as a result of the Vietnam War, but not as much since Jews served in a far less proportion in Vietnam than they did in World War II. But that's a subject for another discussion. Now, here's my proposal. My proposal is this, and it's based on halakha, and it's based not only on halakha, but it's based on the realities of 21st Common Era realities, not just in the United States, but in Israel and worldwide. Women today in civilized countries do have equal rights. Therefore, my proposal is this, that a part of the ketubah, which is a marriage contract, should include what happens in case of a divorce. And Judaism is actually extremely liberal in allowing for divorce. Perhaps not as liberal as Islam, but definitely a lot more liberal than any branch of Christianity that I'm aware of. And what should be done? Very simple. Whoever is responsible for the breakup of the marriage loses any gain from the marriage. Obviously, if a man or a woman brings in certain property into the table or into the marriage, that is their property if it still exists, or an equivalent of that property from the gain of the marriage. But joint assets purchased together, irrespective of who put in more or who put in less, should remain the property of the damaged party. That means if a woman, by her action, destroyed the marriage, any gain she had in the property becomes her husband. If a man, by his action, destroyed the marriage, any gain in the marital property should become his wife's property. And who shall determine that? Today, in the civil court, domestic relation courts are called courts of equity. In effect, 90% of them are courts of inequity, because they are very inequitous to the man. On the other hand, this should be determined by competent Jewish scholars serving in a Beit Din, and it should be emphasized right from the beginning that these scholars should not take into consideration the issue of the get at that point, but rather they should take to get the issue of awarding what to whom, and strictly under the parameters of he who causes the damages or she who causes the damage is the losing party. And if the children are over 3, they are also the losing party to the custody if the winning of the prevailing party wants custody. Because obviously, and this is common sense, I mean, this is common decency. A person who cheats on their party in a marriage, or a person who does whatever is possible to destroy the marriage or the marital bonds, that person is not competent to take care of the children. I know many cases where children were bought out of Torah because of this, where a woman who did everything possible to destroy the marriage got custody of the children, and today these children are going to black churches even, Jewish children, Jewish men and women going to black churches because their mothers raised them wrong. Where they would have remained with their fathers, they would have been raised right. And perhaps some of them would even be rabbis today. This is a total cherpa, or blemish, a huge blemish, a stain on the body of Judaism today. Now, I'm speaking this also from personal experience. My first wife, Sheila Goldberg, Bat Avram Alevi, after we were married for less than a month, was already cheating on me. She was actually committing adultery on Yom Kippur. When she decided to leave, when I told her I'm not going to put up with it, when I actually caught her red-handed. So she left because she knew I was probably going to divorce her. She took away, she actually left her clothing she left where we were living in Miami, but she took my tools, she took my supplies and sold them. She caused over $30,000 in credit card debt. She caused me a loss of over $250,000 by settling a lawsuit that I had with some of my business partners against companies that cheated us. The total sum of the lawsuit was estimated to be worth well over $6 million. And I'm talking the mid-70s at this time. And the rabbis thought that was just fine. That was due to her. I actually won a $64,000 settlement against her in domestic court in Cleveland from the judge who was the most pro-woman judge on the domestic relation bench in Cleveland, Ohio. To this day, I have not collected a penny. She did get a get by Shaliach in 1982, I believe, after she had 3 or 4 children, all of whom are Mamzerim. The fact is, there are ways to make this right for her because of certain things that happen, and there are still witnesses who are living who could attest to this. She refused an asmana to the Beit Din in Cleveland back in the days when the Beit Din Tzedek of Cleveland was still ruling strictly according to halacha without recognition of faces, which is actual fact of Jewish law, and it's actually in the Torah, that the judges should not recognize persons, they should recognize facts. And it's also in halacha and Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat. Now, to clarify this, Jews are not allowed to charge interest to other Jews. On the other hand, Jews are not supposed to suffer a loss due to inflation and the actions of other Jews. So I know what silver, which is real money, since the word silver in Hebrew is kesef, which translates into money also, was worth in 1977, specifically September 1977. It was worth $3.41 an ounce. I looked it up in the internet. I actually Googled it, and I got it through Wikipedia. If the party that damaged me or her former husband, she's also divorced from that man, his name is Victor Rosenberg, make me whole in silver, in the valuation of what I could have purchased silver coins or silver bullion in those days, then I would gladly make right for any of their children that were conceived after September 1977. Those who were conceived afterwards, unfortunately, I cannot help, and I believe at least one was conceived, those who were conceived before, I cannot help, and I know at least one was conceived beforehand, unless Sheila aborted that child, because when she came to divorce, hearing that she demanded under a motion of reconsideration, she came to court at least 5 months pregnant. Therefore, once this is done, I will do whatever it takes to make any children conceived after September 1977 halachically clean. It is very unfortunate she did this, but that is the fact. The reason she didn't want to come to the Beit Din in Cleveland is the Beit Din in Cleveland did say they will first resolve the financial issues according to the ruling of the domestic relations judge, which means anything fair between $34,000 and $128,000. Even though the initial judgment before the motion of reconsideration was $64,000. I agreed to that at that time. Sheila did not. She turned down 4 invitations to the Beit Din. And then the Beit Din in Cleveland did say that once she pays whatever the award was, they would make sure that I would give her the get. Now, this I believe is extremely fair. The daughter most concern she has is a lady named Esther Rosenberg. So anybody who knows thereabouts, and Sheila's address, I believe, is 813 East 13th Street, Brooklyn, New York. And I don't know where Victor is. I haven't heard of Victor since I saw him at the first divorce hearing in Brooklyn, New York, which Sheila initiated in Kings County Court. Now, I believe my proposal is extremely fair. I also believe if a man kicks his wife out of the house, or a man abandons a wife and even leaves her the house, even though she's not working, has no means of support, until the get is given, he should give her a reasonable amount when he's obviously at the fault of the breakdown of the marital relationship. I believe he must give her reasonable enough to survive and for her children to survive. I also believe in the dictates of Jewish law that's elucidated in Talmud Gittin, that when a divorce happens, and let's say they couldn't get along together, or the woman just out of spite kept on spoiling the man's soup. Under Jewish law, a man is allowed to divorce his wife if she purposely oversalts his soup just to spite him or to cause him ill physical treatment. But under those circumstances, the Talmud clearly says that female children, girl children, should go with the mother. Male children over 3 should go with the father. Male children under 3 should remain with the mother until they are 3. And after the first haircut ceremony, which in Israel is on the 3rd Lag BaOmer, in this country it's on the 3rd birthday, should go with the father. I very much believe it, because obviously male children need a male influence and a positive male influence in their lives. Now obviously if the father is a negative influence, he should not have his children male or female. But if a father is a positive influence, he definitely should have at least his male children. And on the other hand, if a mother is a negative influence, she should not have her daughters, especially after the age of 3, when they don't need strict maternal nurturing anymore, when they need guidance more than nurturing at that point. It's amazing that our Torah recognizes this fact on a life cycle of a child, and most other religions do not. Most other religions want to infantilize a person until they're either 16, 17, 18, in some places even 21. In Judaism, a person begins to get autonomy as a human being at the age of 3, and total autonomy for a girl between the age of 12 and 12 and a half, and for a boy at the age of 13. Now, total autonomy, obviously, in this economy does not mean that a person could be financially self-sufficient. But a person is capable at this age of post-puberty of making decisions for themselves in many aspects of their lives. As a matter of fact, I know many children who have a better insight of right and wrong than their own parents. I know many, many children. On the other hand, I do know quite a few children who do not have this insight. But that, I believe, is the fault of our educational system, much more so than biology. But getting back to the get issue, a man who leaves his wife, or a man who beats his wife, must give his wife a get. And men who do such things do deserve to forfeit all or most of the joint marital assets developed post-marriage. On the other hand, a woman who cheats on her husband, or a woman who walks out on her husband, especially as she's walking out, she's causing him increased debts or stealing his personal property, that woman doesn't deserve anything from the marital assets, and actually should be made to recompensate her husband before a get is given. Anybody who has questions, please address those to me in my personal Facebook page under Jacob Feuerwerker or Rabbi Jacob Feuerwerker. Address them to me in the message section, because I do read my messages every time I look up in my Facebook page. Also, any donations to increase and to make public this issue and to further advertise this, please send them to 13813 Cedar Road, number 302, South Euclid, Ohio. Euclid spelled as the mathematician, 44118. I bless you all. How's that?